Welcome back, everyone, to R2Kast number 56. Now, I say every week we have a very interesting guest, and it's actually two guests this week, but I really do mean it's interesting because it's something that I know nothing about. So, I mean, you probably think I bring a lot of guests on and you're like, Wallace, you don't know what you're talking about, and that would absolutely be correct. But today we really have a subject like that. So we're going across the pond today. We're obviously in the UK. We're heading over to Canada. As I terribly said last week, Canada, which was very embarrassing. We'll just try and pretend that didn't happen. But I want to welcome on Brian and Mandy of the Riverside Bog Cranberry Farm. Brian, Mandy, if you'd like to say hello, guys.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Before we get on into another excellent episode of the R2Kast, I would just like to thank the sponsor for the show today, The Scottish Farmer. A weekly magazine highlighting everything you need to know regarding the Scottish agricultural industry, whether it's breaking news, events happening in the sector, market reports, classified ads, or just wholesome stories happening in the industry. The Scottish Farmer's got it for you.
So I have been strictly instructed, that my accent is quite hard to understand. So I'll do my best to be in my best behaviour to make sure I can be heard well. And yes, I'll try not to embarrass myself on that side. So if there's any blank looks from Mandy and Brian's side, we know why that is. I said cranberry farm. Now, I said that at the start, and you're probably, a lot of you listeners are thinking, normally we've got someone that's working with beef or sheep or dairy or whatever. It's things that are relatively common here in the UK. This is obviously not common here in the UK, and I, for that reason, really look forward to this. So let's start off, before we even get into cranberry farming. Were both of you in cranberry farming your whole life? Were you from a farm, or the farm you're on? What? No, well, heads are shaking, so let's hear that story.
Okay, so I did grow up on a farm. So I'm 48 years old, and I was born into a farming family. My grandfather, when he immigrated from Holland, he started out doing what most Dutchmen do, which was drain wet land and turn it into farmland. And from that, he progressed into dairy. My dad always had dairy and hogs. When he did sell his dairy, he got into cranberries, which started kind of my interest in cranberries as well. I did spend a bit of time outside of our own home farm working on other dairy farms, did a lot of relief milking. But yeah, somehow we ended up in cranberries, and we're loving it. It's a great life.
Excellent.
Yeah, for me, I have no farming background. I just married the farmer. But yeah, now I have a card that actually says I'm a farmer on it. So yeah. I guess I'm legit, but my background's actually teaching. I'm a teacher by trade, but I'm actually not really teaching anymore, doing more of the farming stuff. So yeah.
Was that teaching like elementary, or was that teaching a specific subject?
Yeah, no, elementary school. Yeah. And then
look at me using the right line.
Yeah, there you go.
We're keeping track of how many times you get it right today.
And by the way, he's not.
I don't. Well, when you said 48, I was like, you look very young for 48.
Because I shaved this morning. Imagine how you would look if you took your. I shaved this morning, right? I had to look my best.
I'll be honest, right? Too. I'll be honest. When Mandy and I first started emailing, I thought there was a mention of a bearded man, and I was like, "Where is he? Where's he gone?"
I'll give you the background to that. So I went on holidays a couple weeks ago, and I tend to let myself go a little bit when I'm out in the bush. So when I got back, we're coming into really hot weather here. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's 30 degrees already. So having a big beard, not a fan. It's just too hot, too itchy. So I'll maybe grow it back in the fall, but.
How big are we talking here? How big are we talking?
Oh no, nothing like you.
Nothing like you. No, my brother has a beard like you. Yeah, my brother could double. Actually, my brother and my brother-in-law, they both could double as Vikings. One of them looks exactly like Ragnar.
Well, I don't know if I could quite say I look like that, but I'll be honest, I sort of, before I do a podcast, the day before, I start coming up with things I'm going to say and that sort of thing. And one of the things I was ready to do was sort of act it out like a boxing match. In one corner, we have the Scottish beard, we have, but now I just look like an idiot. I just look like an idiot.
You win. I'll just let you take it.
This is not a competition of manlyhood. We do not need to get into that. Okay, it's a discussion for another day with a few more whiskies. It's funny I say whiskey as if I'm really cool and drink whiskey. I drink Pornstar Martini, but we can pretend. Just while you said the temperature there, I thought I'd quickly look up what temperature we were at the minute. We're sitting at 16, and I found today pretty bloody warm.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah, 16. That's 6 in the evening, so that was maybe 18 a few hours ago. But yeah, we're not cut out for the heat. How long have you got that heat in Canada then? How many months of the year?
Oh,
honestly, usually it's only for a couple of weeks that we get the really hot, like plus 30. This year's been a really weird year. I don't know if you followed the news at all, but last November we had really heavy flooding here, heavy rain. Took out all the highways out here. I mean, we literally were sitting here with the city of Vancouver completely landlocked. There was no route in or out.
Yeah, trucks couldn't get out. And
it was insane. And we're just actually, just being able to get out of the valley now on our holidays, and we're seeing the damage from that. And then we came into rain. We had rain that was almost biblical here for 5 months.
Yeah. It was wet basically up till June. It was long.
So for farmers, that's never good, right? So all the crop planting was delayed. All the dairy guys out here, their corn was probably 3 weeks late in the ground. The blueberry guys are really struggling getting a crop this year because it went from cold and wet with poor pollination to right now super hot. So the fruit's literally ripening overnight and falling off the plants. But the cranberries are surviving. They like the water. Bloom was a little bit stretched out, so probably a couple weeks late. But this heat should catch everything up, and the crop looks like it's going to come along really well this year.
Good. It's I mean, we all know cranberries like water. It's one of those things, isn't it? And we'll get into sort of how the whole cranberry system works in a wee bit, but I'm gonna have quite a few questions, so I apologize in advance for that. But we've been talking a bit about accents. There's one thing I have to mention. I love what you just did, a Canadian saying out. It is just brilliant. I love that little accent. I don't know what it is. I'm not even going to try it because I'll embarrass. I'll sound like an owl, but yeah, love it.
All I said was out. You like that word?
I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't even know. That's so funny.
It's quite funny how you have your own accent and you're so used to it being whatever, and then you guys really, I don't have a clue what you're saying, and fair enough, I talk pretty quick, which I'm conscious of sometimes. But see that really sort of harsh weather, that intense rain, is Canada kitted out for that, or is that just something that they can't even deal with, or are you used to that sort of thing?
It's been pretty extreme in the last couple of years. With last year, we had what was called a heat dome. I don't know if you guys heard that term.
Well, you guys have it right now, don't you?
No.
What's going on in London right now?
Oh, right. So it's just like a sort of like a heat wave type thing. So
yeah. It was like
40 plus degrees.
We hit 44 degrees one day.
Yeah, that was last summer.
Yeah.
And it was terrible for a lot of the crops around here. All the blueberries and the raspberries, they got hit really hard because it was like harvest time for them.
Yeah. We even thought in our fields.
Yeah, our rot percentage was up.
Yeah, significant amount of rot because of the heat. It just cooked the berries.
Yeah.
Did you say rot percentage?
Yeah, rot. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Damaged fruit, right?
Yeah. Like they're basically squishy berries that are, they're going out with the trash. Like they're not.
Yeah, for sure.
Pre-cooked right on the vine.
Yeah. 46 degrees, no wonder. It's quite funny. I mean, the UK is a bit of a laughing stock, rightly so. If we get a temperature over 22, like the country goes on fire, and we don't know how to deal with that. I mean, London literally was been burning that day, and it was something like I heard, the fire, the fire service gets called out 500 times on a busy day in London, and it was something like 3,500 that day. And we don't know how to deal with weather.
Wow. Yeah, it was really bad here too, because people were like actually dying from it too. We had it was terrible. They had ambulances that were backed up, and they couldn't get it out there. Like, people were literally elderly, mostly, obviously, people who were
For sure.
at risk. It was terrible. But anyway, so back to the point. That was that extreme last year in the summer, and then we had that extreme in the fall, which we get flooding. I mean, we live on a river here, so we get freshet rivers, like water, every year. So that's nothing new, but this was extreme.
So to put it in perspective, right now we had about 150% of the normal snow up on the mountains, and it all came down over the last 2 months, month and a half. So which is normal, right? That happens. So the Fraser River, which is the major river in our side of the country, it comes up to flood levels. So last November, when we had that heavy rain, so the Fraser River does this over a month and a half. It peaks at a high point, and then it slowly goes down after that. Last year, when we had that rain in November, it did it in 2 days. It reached the same levels. It was stunning to watch. An uncalculable amount of water rising by a foot an hour.
Yes.
Like, it was incredible.
Thankfully,
You
our
never
farm.
think. Sorry, Mandy, on you go.
Yeah, no. Oh, I was just going to say, we're in a diked area, so we're actually in a better position than across from us. Like, they are outside of the dike. So for the most part, we're not really at risk. Like, we were a little concerned last year because we were like, if it had gone, I don't know, a meter or two higher, then we could have had some issues. But
there were farms further up that the dikes actually broke, and they flooded out.
Full on flooded. And it was a huge agricultural area too.
All the dairy farms,
and
chickens,
hogs, like, it was lots.
It was stunning. It's kind of once in a lifetime thing that you're going to see.
Well, it's true what you say. It's no, but you're right, because we had a thing 2013. We had this massive snow. Well, in fairness to you, it would have been a drop, but we thought it was insane. And albeit it decimated livestock in the area and that sort of thing, it was gorgeous to see. And I think that is the case. You have to take a step back, no matter how bad these things are, and think, you know what? I'm seeing water rise at a foot an hour, like you said. Like, that's almost incomprehensible. You can't think, can't fathom that,
No.
So it's quite cool to consider. Where exactly in Canada are you guys, for everyone listening?
Well, Vancouver's our closest major city. So we're kind of east of Vancouver, and it's called the Fraser Valley. It's more of like suburbs and more it's not quite rural, but
we can be at the ocean in like 35-minute drive.
Yeah, and then the mountains are kind of surrounding the valley. So we're kind of in a lower lying area right on the coast. But then, you basically will hit the mountains if you drive like 45 minutes and out.
Yeah.
So
we actually have, like, if we look out of our bedroom window here, we can see, part of the volcanic chain of mountains running all the way from the Pacific Northwest, all the glaciers or all the volcanic peaks running down into the U.S. We're literally
like we're on the border.
15 minutes from the U.S. border, just north of the U.S. Vancouver.
Yeah.
So we're tucked right in the bottom corner of BC.
Yeah.
Got you. So two questions on that, I guess. Is that, when you're talking about that sort of volcanic range, is that part of the, what's the name? Oh, there's a song that's terrible. The Ring of Fire. Is that in that line, or is that? Yeah, it is.
The Pacific Rim.
What was that? Sorry.
I think it's called the Pacific Ring of Fire, or Rim of Rim.
It's the ring. It's the ring of fire. Yeah, you got like mountains like Mount Baker, Mount Rainier, Mount Hood.
Mount St. Helens was the one that burst in like the 80s.
Yeah, and then they run across the Pacific, right down through
to like Japan and around. Yeah.
Right. That's right. That's the one. Yeah. No, very cool. So you can see that from where you are.
Yeah.
Stunning on some days.
Mount Baker is the closest one to us. Yeah, it's just in the U.S., but just across. And then there's mountains are kind of where BC has. Like, we're not so, like, we don't have super high
15
peaks.
Minutes up the road, we're already in the
But
mountains.
yeah, like Whistler is really close to us too. It's a couple hours away.
Yeah.
So we go skiing in the winter and all that.
Oh, fantastic! Oh, it's one thing I've never done is, and to be honest, it's one of those things I'd like to do, but I know I'd injure myself. I've got that sort of just. All right, great. That's a nice day. Oh no, I broke my leg. I'm one of those people. It's quite interesting. You guys have got that site of probably relatively active volcanoes, because I quite often say on the podcast, it's a bit of a fun fact. The farm that I've been brought up on, my mum and dad's farm, is on a volcano. But I mean, it's not like St. Helens. It's not going to go tomorrow or anything like that. It's been dead for however long. But how likely is it for there to be an eruption in you guys' vicinity? Very not likely.
No, it's like a sleeping giants. They always say, like,
I've seen Baker vent a little bit,
couple times.
but they watch ever since Mount St. Helens, the U.S. Meteorological Society. They watch those things like a hawk, right? Because more and more people are moving into the areas that will be affected. There's more and more development on the slopes, like agriculture, especially because typically the volcanic areas are quite rich in good soil. They watch all that stuff. So most of them being dormant. Mount St. Helens erupted in 80.
No,
In 1980. Yeah.
My parents got married the day before it blew.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, they were driving on their honeymoon and drove right in that area, and everything got covered in ash. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, when it goes off like that, it doesn't happen again for a long time. It takes a long time to build that part back up, right? So, and we're far enough away.
Yeah, it's not really on our radar, I wouldn't say at all. We just like the mountains. We like.
It's just gorgeous to
It's
look at.
beautiful, yeah.
Has snow on it year round.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a stunning view.
Oh well, after this podcast, I'm going to ask you guys for like a sort of some kind of landscape photo in what I call farming setting for the YouTube, yeah, when you're doing that, if you could send me a photo of that, I'd love to see that. That'd be really cool. Yeah, I will reciprocate with a boring one.
Wallace, if you just Google the Bog Riverside cranberries and just look at some of the pictures that people have posted on our Google link, you'll see all kinds of the stuff that's around.
Yeah,
here.
like if you Google it.
Yeah. Lots of visitors have posted pictures right on our just on our Google page.
Yeah.
So it's cool to check out.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well do. And I always like, because when there's something slightly different, I always like to sort of hold off, and it makes people watch the podcast for longer. So there's one thing I want to get into before we jump into cranberries, and that's you mentioned about your family in Holland, Brian. Was that your grandparents, your parents? I can't remember. Was it?
Yeah. So both sets of grandparents immigrated from Holland. My mom was actually born in Holland. She was 5 when her immigrated. Yeah. So yeah. And Mandy's parents as well.
My grandparents on both sides are also Dutch.
Yeah, Dutch background as well.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. It's funny for you guys listening. I mentioned the accent earlier, and Brian compared it to when he went out to Holland and struggling to understand folk. And I'm like, it's a different language. Is my accent really that bad?
No. Okay, here, I got a better comparison for you. I got a good friend who's an Australian, and when he lays it on thick, like if his brother comes from Australia and they start going on and put a couple drinks into him, I might as well just sit back and watch because I can't understand a word. Not a word.
It's the stage of pure inaudibility. Like, yeah, there's nothing there. In fairness, I think that's just Australians with a drink in them. That's
probably. And as I listen to you, I'm starting to understand it. I'm not getting hung up on any words now. It just took a little bit. When all I'm hearing is the Canadian English, and all of a sudden you get a Scotsman talking, it's quite a difference.
Yeah, well, and also, and as you'll know, Brian, the beard muffles the voice as well, so that's part of it too. You mentioned, and this has been a massive interest to me ever since I was a kid. My mum would tell me about this. They sort of would drain land, and the Dutch were the first to sort of reclaim sea ground. Is it Zuiderzee it was called? No, that's the...
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah.
And we went to there with a uni trip. I studied agriculture at university, and we went there when we went to Holland, and to see the place was really interesting. I thought the tourist centre was a great letdown, but the actual place was really interesting. And you said your parents brought that to Canada. So how did that come in? Was that sort of reclaiming poor land? Is that what you meant?
His grandparents.
Yeah, my grandparents. So
Grandparents,
my grandfather, yeah, he came out on his own before he'd even met my grandmother, and I think he immigrated in 47 or 48, right after the war. So he came out, and he worked for a Dutchman who was already out here, draining what we call bogland, which is essentially marshes. So we've got all this entire area out here is full of creeks and rivers, and it's essentially the Fraser Valley is the delta for the Fraser River.
Mm-hmm.
So it used to flood in year out, and the Fraser River is huge. I mean, on an average year, it's moving like 5,000 cubic meters of water per second. So picture that when all the snow melts and comes down, and it's just flooding out. So it created this entire network of creeks and rivers, but it's the richest farmland you'll ever find. So these Dutchmen came out and they looked at it and they saw a challenge. So they took over actually from where the Canadian Army Corps of Engineers failed. The Canadian Army couldn't get the land to drain properly because it's actually all
peatland.
It's all peatland, and it's all pretty much at sea level. So it's essentially everything has to run on a network of pumps. So the Dutchmen came in, they had all this history already, and they just flew at it. And so he worked at that for several years. And that land right now, so we call it the pit polder here. Polder is essentially a reclaimed, it's a Dutch word for a reclaimed wetland.
Okay.
And that area, pit polder, it's all agriculture now.
And a lot of cranberries.
Yeah, there's thousands of acres of cranberries out there. There's thousands of acres of blueberries, and still a few operating dairy farms and nurseries, greenhouses, stuff like that. Yeah.
So then he bought dairy farm? How did that start?
No, he started working as a herdsman for another farm, and he won a whole bunch of awards.
Really?
Yeah, he was actually good at it.
Oh,
oddly enough.
Oddly.
And then.
Well, that's great. I barely need to be here. Mandy, you can continue the interview. You probably get better questions.
You know how you think you know someone and then you're like, wow, okay.
Well, I read the book.
Oh, there's a book.
Yeah, there's a whole history of.
Oh, is that the one?
Yeah, farming in the Fraser Valley, and my grandfather's mentioned in there a bunch of times because he won some awards for these high-producing cattle that he was managing. And then he started up on his own farm, and somewhere in there he had gone back to Holland and met my grandmother, and he came back, proposed to her through the mail, and she flew out here. Just I barely knew the guy, right? And and there it happened.
That's your dad's side.
My dad's
side. Mom's side, they were chicken. When did they start that? They did poultry.
I don't actually know as much about what they did when they came out here, because I know he bought a farm. He did have chickens, and then he sold that for a lot of money already back then, and he started up that truck equipment business and the hydraulic equipment that my brother actually owns today, which has grown into a very large corporation. I think they have 50 employees now. So that's been in the family now since 1975.
And did you say that was hydraulics they were in?
Yeah, they do like attachments for excavators, and then they also do truck bodies, like work trucks for the municipalities and stuff like that. Yeah, a lot of heavy industry stuff too, mining, forestry, all those things. Yeah. Which
that'll be massive in your area, I assume. You know, all the shows that we see over here is set where you guys are, and yeah. Well, I'll be honest, I loved the genealogy lesson. It was great fun, and it seemed, Mandy, like you learned something too.
Well, that was only grandparents, because his parents farm too. So I mean, it's definitely like his family's been very involved in agriculture.
Yeah, farming.
Mine's not.
I took. What the heck? No, I took, I think, maybe a year of all the years that I've worked that I did not work on a farm, because even when I traveled. Yeah, even when I traveled to Holland, I spent a year in Holland. I still worked in a greenhouse growing tomatoes, which I absolutely hate. I hate tomatoes. That's just
How can you hate tomatoes?
I know. I love them. I know. Me too. So annoying.
I don't know. I just
he'll eat, like, his favorite soup is tomato soup, and he like passes. It's like everything but the actual raw tomatoes.
I hate raw tomatoes. They're gross.
Is that by any chance because you were sickened by them in Holland, or you hate them
No,
there as well?
right from day one. I can remember my parents had a garden on the farm here, and I can remember standing there looking at a row of these little cherry tomatoes, all bright red and ripe and ready to eat. And I'm like, I have to try these things again, because it had been so long since I told myself I hated them. And I can remember putting one in my mouth and almost throwing up. I was probably 10 years old. So since that day, I won't touch a raw tomato.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough. It's good to know what you do and don't like. But do you know, Holland's always interested me. It's that, like we're talking about there, the land reclamation and just the sheer size of their horticultural side and the flower side and that. And yeah, it's quite something, to be honest. But we're not here to talk about Holland. We are here to talk about cranberries, which if you're listening, you'll have seen in the title, and we've mentioned it a couple of times throughout, but it has taken us 25 minutes to get to, because I'm a genius for getting used to wait around. Why did you jump into cranberries? There we go. Your family were doing dairy. Why did they go to cranberries?
Okay, so I think that's a bit twofold answer there.
Okay.
I was working on a dairy farm just up the road from my home farm where I grew up, and across the road there was 160 acres of marsh, like literally wet land, where you ride a horse through there and you might not come out the other side. That kind of wet. And I'm sure I mean, you guys have bogs out there too, right? I'm guessing some of them are pretty treacherous places.
Well, do you know, it's quite interesting you say that, and sorry to interrupt you just quickly, Brian, but this is number 56. On R2Kast 52, we actually spoke to a girl, Amy, who they farm a marsh here in the UK, and they're farming a beef system. So it's going to be really interesting to see the two systems on the same ground. And one of her descriptions was you could take the quad over it and not come out the other side. So it was the exact same thing you've just said, but a horse. So this is really cool to sort of see the comparison.
And those are the challenges, right? Just before this, we sat down for this podcast. I was over at my neighbor's just chatting to him. He has a blueberry farm, and he's actually in a true peat field, like peat bog. And this poor guy, he says, I was out here till 1 o'clock this morning trying to unstick his blueberry harvester. And yesterday when we drove by there, he had a tractor that was, buried halfway up the wheels. So he's in the true peat. Now, we call our farm a bog, but it's not. We have really nice organic black topsoil here with clay and river sand underneath it. And we actually put down 6 inches of sawdust, or 15 centimeters for those of you on a different system. 15 centimeters of sawdust.
We're metric over here, so thank you.
Yeah, we are too, but we're close enough to the US that most people talk metric. If you talk metric to them, they don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We do everything in inches and feet here.
For those Americans, you have to convert. Yeah.
So, getting back to starting, I watched the wetland across the road as I worked on this dairy farm for 3 years. I watched them turn it from a forested piece of wetland into a cranberry farm, and it fascinated me. So at that point, I had already looked into cranberries just to understand a little bit about what they were. And at the same time, my dad had come to me and my 2 brothers and said, hey, are you guys interested in taking over this farm one day? And we basically said, no. We didn't want to deal with.
They didn't want to do dairy.
Yeah, we didn't want to do dairy. I mean, it was just one of those things. My brother was already kind of on a different path, and my younger brother was too young to even know what we were talking about. So it was more, we just said, Dad, do what you want to do. And 30 days later, the cows and the quota were gone. He literally just, he sold out. Yeah, so I guess it was on his mind already, and he would have stuck with it if we had said yes. At the same time, the neighbor was selling his farm, so I think the opportunity would have been we would have bought the neighbor and expanded the farm. But so with that, via we heard that Ocean Spray, which anybody who knows about cranberries will have heard the name Ocean Spray. We heard that they were looking for new acres for planting in this area, and that works on a quota system where they give you the acreage quota. So you can plant, let's say, if you say you want to do 25 acres, they'll give you those acres. You can't plant more than that, but they will take whatever yield you give off of that land. So,
okay, yep.
Yeah, so my dad all he did was sold the cows and the quota. He still had all the land. So we took a 20-acre piece of farmland and we turned it into a cranberry farm, and thus started our
And that's like 1998 or
That was in
99?
99 we started.
Yeah.
We planted there. And that started our, last 20 some odd years of learning. And
But that was his farm, because our farm didn't start till 2009, 10.
10.
Kind of started.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So
I was part
there's
of
2 cranberry farms.
3.
There's actually 3 because my younger brother,
3.
he also farms just down the road. We all farm together in a sense. Like if we
Sharing equipment
Yeah.
and
if we need a hand,
helping each other. Yeah.
yeah, we definitely harvest. Like my dad's 72 this year, and he still like spends the whole day up on the equipment. He drives
He's the semi-driver.
he takes the truck in to deliver the fruit every load.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a farmer through and through. Like he loves it. He's still heavily involved in agriculture, more at a government level now.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Right.
Yeah.
He's like on the politician side.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because he has no
Wow.
formal training. He has no formal training in any of this stuff, right? It's just a lifetime of experience that has led people in the government, like even our Ministry of Agriculture, the top levels, they actually come to him for information. I mean,
But that's because he's also I don't know if he's chairing that anymore, but he was chair of the Canadian Pork Council.
oh yeah, he still is.
Is he? Okay. And then he was involved in
Right.
like investment for agriculture, so like Projects IF, right?
Yep.
And then also, Cranberry Commission, which is another organization. So lots of connections. And he's a very personable guy, like charismatic. We always joke that when Dad goes somewhere, he knows somebody.
He knows
like literally anywhere you go. Like it's so weird.
This guy knows everybody. It is incredible.
Or he'll find somebody.
He's got
Oh, for
these
sure.
stories. He's got these stories. They're hilarious. He'll be like, they like traveling as well. My parents, they travel all over the world. So he'll be walking through the airport in Melbourne, Australia, and he'll recognize somebody that he's worked with years ago. Just random weird stuff like that, right?
You get a photo like that, don't you? And the farming community is great for it. But I mean, it's not quite as much a comparison as going to Melbourne from Canada. But one funny one was a guy that I worked with. I'm on Arran, the island off the coast of Scotland, but I live on the mainland when I'm teaching throughout term time. And one of the guys I worked with, I was just coming over the boat and I started chatting to him. And his daughter goes, "Oh, Dad, can we not go anywhere without you knowing someone?" And that sounds so like your old man.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. It's a good one. So are we looking with yourselves to a future Minister of Agriculture? Is this policy a thing you could see either of yourselves going into?
My
One
sister works,
head shape?
so
I think her sister
Yeah.
has the potential to be
Yeah.
there. She's like maybe 4 positions below that right now. But
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
so both sides of our family have quite a strong connection to agriculture. She just didn't grow up in it.
no.
It's got,
Although
it's got to help you guys.
She was over at our house often enough when she was younger that she might as well have grown up on the farm.
Our stories like it's the classic girl next door kind of thing. I was best friends with his younger sister growing up, so
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually just about to ask when you mentioned that, you guys started your part in 2010 and it was 1999, how you met, and it wasn't quite a, sending a letter to Holland type deal. It was right next door. So you have always known each other, yeah?
pretty much since
yeah.
I was probably like 5 or 6. Then
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
I didn't notice her till she was like
I'm quite a bit
18.
younger than
Yeah.
him, so yeah, I had to grow up.
Really good you didn't notice till 18 now.
No. There's another story. I won't go into it. But he
Oh.
moved to Holland for another girl.
I
so
was
let's
in
just
Holland
say.
for another girl.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh no, right, okay. So let's talk about cranberries.
Let's not open any old wounds here, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Good God. So cranberries. I did say I was going to have a lot of daft questions, and I do mean that. Can you right? Let me explain this question before I make a complete fool of myself, because I am an agricultural lecturer, but just don't have a clue about this. You see these pictures, the ocean spray adverts, that sort of thing, cranberries in a river and they're catching it with the logs and all that sort of jazz. Could you tell me the full process from seed to harvest? Because I just do not know how it happens.
I hope you've kicked your feet up and got comfy and enjoying another fantastic episode of the R2Kast with another really interesting guest. I would just like to quickly take another second to plug the sponsors of the show today, the Scottish Farmer, and I would strongly advise you to go out and pick one up this week and see even more of the fantastic people that are in our industry.
First thing, cranberries do not grow in water. That's the number one.
I think
Everybody.
I assumed that part. That was all I had. That was all I had.
Didn't you say river?
What's that?
Did you say river?
Did I say growing river? I didn't mean growing river. I meant like you see the videos of them moving in the water, and I don't really know. To be honest.
All right. So just so you know, we run tours on our farm, so there's no real dumb cranberry question because we've heard them all.
Pretty much. That's why I was like, number one,
so,
they don't grow.
So don't feel like you're asking me something that somebody hasn't asked me before.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So start to finish. Most important thing about cranberry farm is flat land. If you're going to harvest with water, you need flat land. So, you know, we took 40 acres of land here, and we took a laser leveling equipment to it, and we put it all into flat sections. The whole farm isn't the same elevation. We have different stages for fields, simply because the topography allowed us to do that. But that's the first thing. We started with flat land. Then we diked it all, you know, because when we harvest with water, you have to keep it in the field that you're harvesting. Drainage is key. Irrigation. Then we covered everything with 6 inches of sawdust, and we did a bunch of different types of planting. We did some where we took cuttings and just rototilled it into the sawdust and let it grow that way. We did some where we had pre-grown plugs from propagation, and we stuck them in already rooted. That was by far the nicest field to work with because the plants were all healthy and uniform. It wasn't a bit of a crapshoot as to whether some of it would survive and some of it wouldn't, like we had with the rototilling. And then we did it all over again because we did one field with a new variety and the rest of it was the old traditional varieties. And guess what? The new variety produced 3 times the yield as the old ones. Right. So my math tells me that 3 times the yield every year adds up exponentially to a lower yield, and it just made sense. So probably already 5 years after we did our first planting, we ripped it out and we replanted with all the new variety, and the yields are stunning in comparison.
So the crops that are put in the ground aren't a one, you know, put in this year and then have to sow again. It's right.
No.
So
this plant, if you take care of it, you will never have to replant it. You could have 100 years of production off of it.
Yeah, some of the old farms in the States are like that old.
Yeah. These fields can go back. Yep, they go back into the 1800s, late 1700s.
There's a bit of an issue sometimes with purity, like when you take cuttings, like we did from a previous and then planted them. That's part of why the yields can go down.
I'm not 100% on why that is. The studies all seem to show that if you take growth and mow it and replant with it, some of the vine over time it loses its like Mandy said, the purity, the DNA profile of it changes.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm thinking that it's possible that they get cross-pollinated with other varieties. You know, like a squash will do that. Every time a squash, 2 different squashes pollinate, they create a new one. So it's possible that there's some of that going on. But we were seeing the purest strains of this variety were year in, year out in fields was changing, and it was reducing the yields. So we just, like I said, we went with one of the new varieties that was developed out of the US, out of one of their university programs. And, you know, we're comparing yields of 40,000 pounds. You're not doing pounds. So let's say 18,000 kilos per acre to what we were getting was 8,000 kilos per acre.
Oh, wow. So, that's a big change. Is there a standout variety, you know, like for McDonald's chips, it's normally Pentland Dale for whatever. Is there a standout variety for Ocean Spray cranberry juice?
I think Ocean Spray cranberry juice,
juice is kind of the lower grade cranberries anyways.
Yeah, and it's made up from all the different varieties, whatever the color.
So sorry, when you're saying Ocean Spray, over here, the only time I've ever seen Ocean Spray is on cranberry juice, not strictly cranberries. So you're producing fresh cranberries for Ocean Spray as well?
No. Okay, so there are fresh, But have you guys ever tried craisins? They're like a dried cranberry, like a raisin, sort of. Okay.
So they're like cranberry raisin, they're like a cranberry raisin. Yes, I will have. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So a large percentage of that goes into that.
Most of our ocean fruit will go into that. Yeah.
They do fresh for Ocean Spray though. Like there are fresh farms, and then juice, and then they do other products.
But
sauce.
They don't use one specific variety for that. There's like, I want to say mainstream. There's at least 25 different cranberry varieties that growers are shipping into their processors. So when they all get processed, whatever culls, whatever juice berries are left, that's what they make juice out of, whether it's, one specific variety or whether it's 10 different ones.
But the more quality cranberries go into craisins than into juice. Yeah. So craisins are higher quality.
Got you. So that's I guess that's where the confusion started. I've only ever seen Ocean Spray written on the juice over here. It's the only cranberry juice we really have. The cranberry and mango one, oh my god, I could drink that forever, but it makes me ill. But I could drink it forever. But I think
flavor.
What's that?
It's my favorite flavor. We never buy the Ocean Spray stuff because we actually have our own line of juice.
Yeah, we've been educated on. We used to drink Ocean Spray all the time, but now we have our own juice and we just like it pure. It's like way more tart, but way more healthy.
But I buy pure mango juice and then blend it with pure cranberry juice. It's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing! I mean, absolutely amazing. Well, use this time. I don't have a massive following on here, but there'll be 4,000 people watch this podcast. Tell us your juice, or is it just for yourself? Or are you not selling it?
No, we got a full retail line of stuff. It's actually the last 6 weeks has been quite interesting. We did a trade show and we picked up a couple big grocery chains here. We're very interested in our product, mostly in the fresh fruit that we tend to only do on a small scale for the farm markets, the local farm markets, but we're going to actually ramp that up more for retail this year. And with that, they picked up the other lines of our product as well. So we do a cranberry sauce, obviously, which is kind of, the staple that the cranberry is known for is its sauce. We do a cranberry pepper jelly. We do the juice. We do freeze-dried cranberries.
Yeah, that's something you probably make.
Those are interesting.
Yeah.
We'll get your address after, and we'll ship you some of this product because you need to try it in order to.
That was so fun.
Yeah. So we've just started going into retail with it now, and it's quite interesting. It's neat to see your product when you walk down a grocery store and you see your product on the shelf beside well-established brand names, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty insane. And what is the name, guys? Sorry.
It's all under the bog.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, that's like our farm called Riverside Cranberries, and that's the farm that we started in 2010. But about 4 years ago, we started to launch our own farm brand, which is the Bog Riverside Cranberry Farm. Yeah. Yeah.
So our farm, we have about 35 planted acres of cranberries, and we took 20 acres of our fields out of our Ocean Spray contract so that we could market the fruit ourselves. Yeah. That also gave us the opportunity to fool around with some of these ideas that we had, and some of them are actually growing at a decent pace now.
Yeah. Yeah, like BC, so British Columbia, the province that we live in, like for the cranberry industry, like 95% of the growers are in Ocean Spray cooperatives. So it's pretty much a monopoly on the market here. So yeah, like we decided that we wanted to try to diversify ourselves about 4 years ago, just so that we could, it's challenging. Like farmland is probably the most expensive in Canada here. I mean, it's ridiculously expensive.
I'm guessing close.
Yeah. So in order to make a go at it, we had to kind of be creative, and we were like, okay, we gotta make money any way we can. And we also saw the potential because nobody else was doing it. We were like, hey, there's a niche.
And for the Fraser Valley is world renowned for agriculture, and we have tons of further processors here.
Yeah.
So there's good opportunity for us to market our own fruit without it even having to leave the valley, right?
Yeah. We're not targeting a large market. We know our market is like our local area, just because, like I said, it's Ocean Spray has got everybody tied up. So, yeah.
But the last.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, you never know how things go. Maybe you guys, I don't know if you guys have got kids or whatever. You never know. You guys might be the ones that is bog cranberry instead of ocean spray in everyone's house. You never know where things might go. And just if you are listening, guys, for those of you listening, check out the Riverside Bog on Instagram. It's a great page, actually. I've really enjoyed. I just came across it. I've been looking for a cranberry farm, and it was the first one that popped up, and I was like, grand, let's go for that. And well, thank God, because it's been great. I need to ask two things. One's jumping back quite a bit. I still don't quite fully know what's happening when the cranberries are in the water.
He said, okay, so let me help you. I'm the one who leads the tours most of the time because he's always in the field. So let's go from. Okay, so basically what we have to do is in mid-September, we get our fruit checked to see whether it's ready to go for picking.
Okay.
So it's got to meet certain criteria for the color and then the bricks, which is like the sugar content in the berry.
Yeah, it's the same strawberry bricks. Yep.
Yeah, so once it's in that certain parameter, then we got the green light to go. Then we turn on our irrigation. We shut off all of the drainage in the field and everything. And then we turn the irrigation on. We also pump in water because irrigation would take a long time to just go.
It takes a lot of water to put.
Yeah.
We start off with about 6 inches. So let's go back to 15 centimeters for those of you.
Yeah. So basically the tip of the plant. So cranberries are a low-lying vine. So they create like a bit of a canopy, but it's not like a bush because some people think, well, where's the bush? We're like, actually, we don't have that here. There are cranberries that grow in a bush, but most of the commercially grown cranberries are a vine. And it's not a very...
It's about 10, 15 centimeters off the ground.
Yeah.
So we'll flood it right just to the tips of those. And then we run the harvester through there, which is...
There's different methods.
Yeah, it used to be a beater style. Have you watched any of this stuff? Like, do you have any idea?
Nothing. So little. Apart from the ocean spray advert, nothing.
Okay. Yeah. So what we call a beater is a mechanical means of knocking the berries off. So the cranberry is unique in that when you crack it open, it has 4 air pockets in it. So naturally, it wants to float. If you take a picture underwater of the berries before they're harvested, they're all trying to lift up to the surface.
Yeah.
So we go along with this special machine that has a turning head on it, a bit like a wheat combine, right? And it goes through and it pops off all the berries so they come up to the surface. That's one of the methods. We actually last year bought a different harvester that is more gentle on the fruit because the beater tends to
beat the berries.
Like you end up with little
dimples. It could bruise them. Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah, so this one is unique in that you run it on a tractor, front and back. So a front end loader tractor, you would attach to the loader arms, and the back you go to the 3-point hitch, and it just slides along and pops everything off. It's got these flexible tines on it that kind of slide through the vines and releases all the berries, and it does significantly less damage to the plants as well. So we ran that last year, and I was quite impressed with how nice that goes. So then all the berries float up to the surface. We bring the water up even higher. So now you're looking at about 30 to 40 centimeters of water. And then we have these floating booms. You call them logs. We actually use...
kind of like a belt with foam inside.
Yeah, there's foam in it, and then it has chain on the bottom end, so it sits vertical in the water.
Right.
They use them a lot in oil containment, like if there's a spill in the ocean or something off of a tug, they'll put these floating booms around it. So that's what we use. We corral them all into one corner of the field, and then we have a vacuum pump that sits in the field, and we just feed all the berries down into that. Mm-hmm. It sucks the berries and the water up with whatever debris is in there, which is usually just leaves, and it runs up over top of a screen. We call it a trash box. So the water wells up the back with the berries, and then it flows over a screen. So the water and the leaves get flushed through, and the berries roll down into our delivery truck, which is essentially a 40-foot shipping container with the roof cut out of it and a special gates on the back so that we can drop them off at the processor. And there they
put it into a pool, which is like a big,
literally they have a big pond in the ground, a concrete pit full of water, and you back underneath what looks like 3 huge taps, like spigots, and they dump 10,000 liters of water in your truck with your door open. And it's like, 50,000 pounds of cranberries come shooting out in 10 seconds. It's quite awesome.
Wow, that's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah. I'm going to have to YouTube this now. I really am.
Well, if you want to go to our website, we have like actual video on our website, like right on the header, like in the opening page. So anybody who wants to check it out, riversidecranberries.ca is our website.
Well, you know, COVID's obviously been around for a few years, and I'm 25, so I basically finished my master's degree. I went straight through education, and then COVID hit. So I've always kind of wanted to travel, and Canada has been way up on that list. And basically what I'm saying is I might actually come on your tour sometime, and then I can really see it.
We'll get you on if you come, Wallace. We'll put you to work.
Yeah.
Please do.
We got lots of waiters. You're covered.
Yeah. What's interesting is that as our called our journey, I guess, from when we started our farm here, you know, the decision to pull some acreage out of Ocean Spray also coincided with our decision to move forward with tours and opening up the farm to the public, to as well to involve people in agriculture, to get them to have a better understanding of where their food comes from, how we grow it as farmers, the risks that are involved, because, you know, people get upset when there's product that's not on the shelf, but they don't understand maybe the reason why it's not there. Yeah. And most of the time, those are factors that are well outside of a farmer's control, right? Like weather, like flooding, like pests and disease, stuff like that. So, you know, we've done that now for, I'm going to say 4 years. We started pretty bare bones, and we're slowly building up the infrastructure on the farm. We've got a little store that's open now during harvest, and it's been interesting just to be able to answer questions like you've been giving us, and to talk to people about what we do, and to just introduce them, because for a lot of people it's so foreign to them. Yes. The connection between where their food comes from and how it gets to the shelf, right? They just expect it to be there. So
yeah, and it's a thing we do over here as well. You know, I work with kids in schools. I do a bit of farm tour guide and that sort of thing. And just getting that story over is important, because people think I should walk into Tesco, or is Walmart in Canada, or is that just the States?
Yeah.
You know, where? Yeah, it's everywhere, Walmart, isn't it? And they just expect the right thing to be there, and it's really not that easy, like you say, Brian. I do have one more question about cranberries, because I do like to cook Christmas dinner. I think I've cooked the Christmas dinner the last 3 years, and Mum will be listening saying she basically told me what to do, which is very true, but I do my best. But one thing I really like making is cranberry sauce. And what I do, and this is what I've been told to do, but I like to do it, put cranberries in, put some mandarin segments in, and some port. And that's pretty much what we do. Just leave it to boil. What else would you tell me? How would you make the perfect cranberry sauce without giving away the bog secret recipe, of course?
Well, you have to use our cranberries.
Oh, brilliant. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. I'm really glad to hear you make your own, because people who have the cranberry sauce in the can, which is like the Ocean Spray.
That's the jelly. It's cranberry jelly.
Yeah. So we make a really simple cranberry sauce. That's the one we have retailing, but I do a lot of specialty ones kind of in the fall. And I did do an orange with brandy one, and that was really good too.
Cranberry orange brandy.
Yeah. And then I've done a cranberry with raspberry and the Merlot, which is also really good. Okay. So there's lots of, we try everything. So
yeah, we put cranberries on everything.
My kid, okay, so this is the story. My daughter, she's 5. We're baking last week, and she's like, I'm like, okay, we're baking muffins. And then, okay, we'll put the cranberries in. And she's like, oh, why do we have to put cranberries in everything? And I'm like, oh, well, we are those people. I promise we can make some cookies without cranberries in them. Yeah.
Yeah. In fairness, I can sort of empathize with your daughter, because we had about, I couldn't say exactly, but a lot of hens, right? A lot of hens producing eggs, and when the shop died down selling eggs for a period of time, it was like, you know, what's for breakfast? Eggs. What's for lunch? Eggs. What's for dinner? Eggs. Do you know, I could really go a little snack. There's an egg, you know. So I totally get it. It's just a red version of my egg despise. But yeah, no. Well, I will try raspberry Merlot cranberry sauce, and I will try brandy and orange cranberry sauce. It's just going to be about cranberry sauce.
Cinnamon is always a good little, like a hint of cinnamon. know if you want to try that. We just cut the sugar down too, because we like tart. I don't know if you like tart, but we find a lot of the recipes out there have so much sugar in it, and I feel like it just kind of like, yeah, it
hides the taste of the cranberry.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, why are you eating cranberry sauce if it's 80% sugar?
Yeah.
Right?
Just eat sugar sauce. Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
Put syrup on your turkey.
I'm not so sure.
Use maple flavor.
So tell me. Yeah, that's it. You guys are Canadian. So do you have pancakes, bacon, and cranberry sauce?
We have pancakes with cranberry sauce on it.
We do.
With maple
Excellent.
syrup. Yeah.
We do, and we're actually so the unique thing about making your own products is every time you make a product, there's a byproduct.
Right.
So we make juice, and what's left? You got the seeds and the skins. So look for a way to use that stuff. So we actually send it to a dryer, and they turn it into a powder, and you can use it as a supplement in smoothies or whatever, right?
Yeah, or baking.
Right.
Or baking. Mm-hmm. So one of the byproducts of the craisin, the dried cranberry, is they press some of the juice out, and it's fairly concentrated. So a lot of the companies out here are using it to make cranberry syrup, and a lot of it actually goes to Europe. They ship it out to Europe, and you know, that's another opportunity we have, like to make all these different products based on what we're left with when we make a different one.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it always intrigues me to develop some of these things and to see if you can find something that's unique enough that people will want it.
Yeah, it does cost a lot of money to like start launching something though. So like a lot of the things we do, we just muck around with at a small scale. Like right now for our retail, we have 5 products.
5 products, yeah.
That we're like going like full on with, but the other ones are all like more small batch stuff that we do.
Yeah, we might introduce them at a farm market and see what kind of feedback you get, right?
And we sell our cranberries year round. So
year round, right? Okay, yeah. And is that the same? You can sell everything year round, or have you got the storage for that?
Yeah.
We built, so one of the properties that we have here, we have two different properties side by side. One of them is one of the original fields from my dad, and he had 2 hog barns on there. So he got out of hogs years ago. So I actually took one of the barns completely apart, right down to the foundation, and then we renovated it, and we put the commercial freezers in it, and there's a packing room, and then our stores in the front of it. And we're going to do the other barn within the next couple of years. We're going to renovate that as well to
facilitate more of the stuff that we're doing.
As we're growing, like even on a small scale, when you got to start storing products, right? Like pallets and pallets of products, it takes up a lot of space. So really, I want to have an area that's designated for that, as opposed to having it all tucked into corners of my packing room.
Yeah, which is going to get really busy.
Get really crowded
once we start
year.
Fresh season and
So, but yeah, the freezers give us flexibility. The freezers give us flexibility to, to be able to store some of our own crop, just a small percentage of it, but it gives us access to our own berries if we need to do another batch of juice, or if we want to send some out to get freeze dried, right? So,
well, it sounds. For sure. It sounds like you've got, the saying would normally be eggs in a few baskets, but it sounds like you've got your cranberries in a few bogs. But the sounds of things, you get a lot of different sort of enterprises on the go, and whether that's cranberry farming, whether that's diversifying into your own bog brand, that sort of thing. Doesn't sound like you're going to struggle. The only problem is going to be that storage, when you can get everything to fit in.
And labor.
Yeah,
labor is a huge problem here. Like, I don't know if you're aware, COVID our government decided to help everybody during COVID, and they basically, whatever. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but we have major issues with getting labor on the whole. So we're kind of like, we have lots of people that we will hopefully tap on, but we have to get creative. Like, there's so many people trying to find workers, and there's just so many people who don't want to work. So it's a really weird dynamic.
Last year actually was brutal, not for us on the farm here. Thankfully, we got a pretty solid community behind us, but some of the blueberry guys out here, they couldn't get the seasonal farm workers that normally would come in from Mexico or Jamaica or some other South American country. They couldn't even get up here, and literally the fruit was rotting in the fields. They couldn't harvest it. It was the saddest thing to see.
Very sad, very sad. And can I just quickly do one thing? I'm going to jump onto my phone because my iPad is just shot down in battery for some reason. So 2 seconds, and I'll edit this bit out. When was this? This was 7:20. I'll jump on to my phone, and I should appear in 2 places now. And then I'll shut myself off this one. Yes, got it. Wi-Fi. Oh my God. That's me. Right, how to do this? Video on. Here we are. Sorry about that, guys. Is this going to sit? Is this going to sit? Is this going to sit? So I better quickly say, if you're watching this on YouTube, it probably looks like I've changed, because I have. Well, not changed clothes, changed area in the room. My iPad died, so we've had to jump onto my phone. We were just talking about. You said, it was tragic to see that the blueberries rotting in the field, and we had a similar thing over here. Our berry market's more on the other side of the country. I'm West Coast, East Coast up in Scotland, just where we've got raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, that sort of jazz. And the workers are mainly Eastern European for us. They couldn't come in. Another one was sheep shearers from New Zealand. They couldn't get in. So yeah, it's a shame. And yeah, I don't know. You said let's not get into the politics, Mandy. It sounds like both your families are in politics. I am dreadful in politics. I know nothing about it. I'm pretty sure your prime minister is called Trudeau, but that's about all I've got. I don't have much more than that. But yeah, is that looking up? Is Labour looking to be in a better place or not? No.
Well, the farm workers are coming in now, like the seasonal workers, so that's good. But
that's not who we get. Like, we rely on just the local community. I mean, we do have a lot of people we know that we can kind of call on, and hopefully that works. But there was times even last year that we pulled our kids out of school. They're like, our older boys are teenagers. We're like, yeah, you're staying home. Sorry, we need you. You need you.
You need life experience right now.
No.
Well, and here's the thing. Our oldest son. So when they shut down the schools here last 2 years ago, 2 years ago, I guess. He'd sit behind the computer, and in 2 days he's got his entire week's worth of schoolwork done.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, you can afford to skip a couple days of school to help me with the harvest, right? And he's like, but it was more the social side that he was worried about. Like, he likes hanging out with his friends. He likes the sport, stuff like that. I said, but you know what, man? I need you. Yeah. So yeah, we kept him out of school for a day, and then we had our other boy out for a day, and then we had all kinds of their friends helping us, these 15-year-old boys, and
yeah, a lot of teenagers.
It was good, and
ladies who were retired. We're like, the regular dynamic of demographic you would think would be the hireable age were not the ones that we got.
No, all those people were just collecting their
we had
$2,500 a month to sit on their ass.
Okay, politics.
It's true though. It's true. And here, I was one of them. I can't disagree. I was also lambing, but I was just taking the furlough.
There you go. Yeah. So. But yeah, it's and because it's seasonal, and we can't say to somebody, hey, we'll hire you for the year. Trying to find people for that 4 or 5 week period when you're extremely busy can be a challenge, right?
Yeah. So what time is harvest? When is harvest?
Mid September to mid October.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And
on our farm, we could be done our harvest in I'm going to say 10 days if we really race through it. But we stretch it out because we've opened the farm up for agritourism. So we'll harvest on a Friday and a Saturday so that people can come out and see it. And then we will leave everything until the next weekend, and we'll do another bog or another marsh the next weekend.
Yeah.
And that's simply to allow us to plan the tours in advance, because everything is pre-booked, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense, yeah.
I'm going to say maybe 3 weeks before, beginning of September, we'll roughly know when our harvest dates will start. So then we set our tour schedule, and once that's set, unless something drastic happens, we usually have time in between fields if something breaks down or goes wrong to fix it, and we can keep to that schedule.
So Canadian Thanksgiving is kind of the peak of when people here are really wanting cranberries. That is the peak season. So it's typically the second weekend of October. usually here. And then there's
I thought it
American
was November. Have I got that wrong? I thought
American Thanksgiving. That's in November.
see.
Yeah. So we have an earlier variety of cranberries, which is why people often don't think about it here, even in September, but ours are ready to go by mid-September usually. So we're first to market in that way, but we have also the challenge that people aren't really necessarily thinking about cranberries until October. So it's a little bit of a weird, we're trying to get people to be like, hey, can you get earlier?
It's also been good in a way because it allows us to kind of jump into that agritourism slowly, as opposed to opening up your farm and suddenly getting
slammed,
inundated. Because, you know, we're in a rural area here, but we're 10, 15 minutes away from huge populations
like urban
urban centers of people living in condos and townhouses and high rises.
Yeah.
And they are looking high and low for things to do on a weekend. So you know, it's a good opportunity for us, but it also, because of the way that we've gone about it, it's allowed us to introduce ourselves slowly, which I'm more a fan of that. You know, I'd rather not drink from a fire hose, if you want to call it that.
Totally get that. It makes a lot of sense, because sometimes a lot of people, I know I could be guilty of being one of those, let's jump in with everything I have, and then suddenly like, oh, I did that wrong. And then so it makes soft launches often make more sense. Listen, guys, I could honestly sit here and ask you recipes for cranberry sauce and how the system works, even though I've already asked you once before and you've told me perfectly because I'm confused, and just keep going. But it's been really great to finally find a cranberry farm that was willing to chat. And well, you were the first people I talked to, so I mean, it's not as if it took me a while, but it's always been one I've wanted to chat to, because like I said, we make cranberry sauce every year here. It's a product we use every year, and it's not really something I knew anything about, as I have clearly proven tonight or this morning for you guys. But I want to thank you first off for coming on. I appreciate it. It's been great to hear what the Riverside Bog's doing, what the plans are there for the future. But there's two things I ask everyone before we finish, and I mentioned plans for the future. That is one of them. Where do you see yourselves in 5 years? And the other tip would be, or the other question, sorry, is if you had tips for folk coming into farming, and let's focus on cranberry farming, which would be a really interesting one, what would they be?
Well, I can answer your second one first, because I can't see the future, so I don't know where we're going to be in 5 years. But the second one being, you know, tips for people who want to get in farming. And farming's one of those. It's not a career. It's a lifestyle. You can't.
Well, this is cranberry farming specifically.
Is this just want to know?
You could do farming as well, and then do cranberry farming, whatever. Yeah, I mean that first start was great, in fairness.
I mean, I'm gonna say that cranberry farming is not that different from any other type of farming. Yeah, you have to have a level of knowledge going into it. You make sure you got both eyes open, because there's a lot of hidden things in it that can jump up and bite you. We made a lot of mistakes early on. You know, not necessarily. None of them were intentional. Some of them were outside of our control, and those costs. They always have a cost. You know, I always tell my boys, education is expensive. Doesn't matter whether you're sitting in a classroom paying for it, or whether it's the life of hard knocks, right? School of hard knocks out in the workplace. It will always cost you money. So, you know, try to limit your exposure to those. Pay attention to details is key.
Yeah.
Details is number one. I mean, I'm consulting for a large cranberry farm out here that just did a whole bunch of replanting. And do you remember what the first thing I said to you when you asked me how we build a farm? What was the first thing I said?
I'm so busy trying to
level fields.
Oh, sorry, that joke. Oh no, I did know that as well. Oh, I just look silly now. I thought you meant at the start of the podcast. Okay.
So these guys have planted fields of 15, 20, 30 acres in size, and they're not 100% level. Can you imagine if you have to add 4 more inches, 10 centimeters of water to a 30-acre field, how much more water you need? Don't do the math.
No.
Length times width times height.
No, I'm not gonna. That would take a while.
Huge.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So anyways, like, you know, pay attention to details, because those details will actually reward you down the road.
But trial and error is also a huge part of farming, and cranberry farming particularly. I think one of the things about our industry, and that's what I think it's important for you guys to know, is that the way we do it is not the way everybody does it. There's a lot of individual methodology. There's a lot of different factors, and everybody's kind of trying to figure it out. We do talk to other cranberry farmers a lot and trying to be like, hey, what worked for you for this and that, whatever. But it's not like there's a set system. So trial and error is very common. And like Brian said, it can be very expensive. But if you're willing to look long-term, I think farming, you have to have a long-term gain. You can't like go in there thinking we're going to be successful right away. You have to kind of love what you do. You have to love the lifestyle, like Brian was saying. Like we have really intense times, but then we have a lot of downtime too. So it's kind of like got ebbs and flows. So if you like that, where you don't have your boss hanging over your shoulder all the time,
yeah, I'm good with that.
Farming's maybe for you, right? And you got to be willing to get your hands dirty.
And again, cranberry farming versus, let's say, sheep farming or dairy farming, dealing with livestock is no pun intended, a completely different animal than dealing with a crop, right? Mm-hmm. Livestock is 24/7. I learned that very quickly on the farm when, you're out there at 1 o'clock in the morning trying to help a heifer deliver a calf and things aren't going well, right? Like you can't just turn that off. Whereas we can, in the winter, we could disappear off this farm for 2 months and it wouldn't affect our schedule, right? So
I mean, that's selling it quite a bit, isn't it? Work hard for 10 months, party for 2. Yeah, brilliant. And you said about sort of long-term game there, Mandy. I maybe asked, where do you see yourself in 5 years, which is a tricky question because nobody knows what's happening. But let's change it slightly and say, where would you like to be in 5 years?
I'm pretty sure you said Mandy there.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I did, but both of you absolutely feel free.
No. We should know the answer. We've been like planning so much. I feel like we're finally at the cusp of where we're like wanting to be. So maybe that's part of like stably, like how can we manage this and do it well where we're not like stressed out? I think that's the key for us. We want to be able to like still enjoy farming and then yet still having this farm brand and all the other work that comes with that. Like we want it to be something that hopefully, is established, and then like we just want to find the market locally. And
we're not the type of people that sit down and write a list of
planners.
Goals, right? We're not. We're both very similar in that way, right? But we can see when we look back at our journey, we can see the opportunities that presented themselves and where they took us. So that gives you a bit of, I guess, knowledge when new opportunities come up. Even if you're not consciously making these decisions, your past has already kind of trained your mind how to address whatever's coming up towards you. So there's some hard and fast things, right? We talked. I want to do the other barn, reno that all up. Right. We want to move more into the fresh fruit market because there's a super strong demand for that.
Maybe buy the neighbor's farm if we can afford it. We would like to grow, but like Brian said, we like to grow not in a crazy, we want to grow proportional. And I think, like Brian was saying too, being kind of fluid with the opportunities that come our way would be something else, because we've gone in a direction that we didn't necessarily see ourselves going, but it's just been kind of a very organic growth. Like we haven't had to stick our necks out massively. We've been sort of slowly growing it. So I think that for us is
and we've met a lot of good people along the way.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of people that have come into our lives at the right time that have been very beneficial with their skill set and their knowledge to opening up opportunities for us. So that's also pretty important too. And don't think that you have to do everything yourself or can do everything yourself. Because I'll tell you what, when I planted my farm here, I had the knowledge of when we had planted 10 years earlier on my dad's farm. And I thought I would take that onto my farm and I would eliminate the mistakes that we had made there. No.
Maybe
new ones. And again, education's expensive. And I think in terms of farming, it's almost like you just spend a lot of time problem solving.
Yeah, and I think for advice too is like, if somebody's interested, it's like, start small. Like, don't think you are gonna be like set right away, because it's like Brian said, we made a lot of mistakes, and the journey has been kind of a little bit, going different directions. There's lots of times where we think something's great, and then maybe that path, not going there, right? So it's not like a straight line. But if you start small and you meet people and you're willing to like put yourself out there a little bit, because that's another thing. We definitely have taking the opportunities that come our path. We're like, yeah, we're in. We'll try it. We don't know. We're farmers, and we're like marketing our own fruit now. We're doing a lot of things that were not really in our skill set, that we were like, but yeah, you live and you learn, right? So
that's a good point, I think, because Rome wasn't built in a day. Why try being perfect straight away?
She's got all these projects for me, and I'm like, hey, you know what? We've been here for 12 years now. We're probably going to be here for the rest of our lives. Like, it doesn't have to happen right now.
How long's that list, Mandy?
When you're with your partner, it gets a little interesting sometimes.
Yeah. It does. It's working. It's definitely working.
Well, it doesn't look like you guys are struggling at all. It looks like it's going really well. But some good tips. And it sounds like when I said where would you maybe potentially see yourself in 5 years, it sounds like you're going to be doing the same thing anyway. And as I say to everyone that says that, I always like to see that, because that means they're happy doing what they're doing, which is good. So yes, I very much appreciate you coming on. We've spoke for well over an hour. It's been great. You have understood at least a quarter of what I've said, because you've answered everything, with what I expected. So that's been a win in itself. I hope you guys have enjoyed coming on.
Definitely have.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Good. Excellent. Appreciate your time, taking out your morning there. So that's very good of you. For those of you listening, I hope you've enjoyed. It's certainly a different episode of the R2Kast today. I've certainly enjoyed it myself. I hope you've enjoyed seeing just how little I know about cranberries, and now hopefully know a bit more, because you have to start with flat land. So that's starting off small, learning the first things and continuing on. I'm also very excited to try my new cranberry sauces. And because I haven't filmed the 57th episode, I don't know what's coming next week, but I'll see you there for R2Kast number 57. And thank you very much to Brian and Mandy. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Well, that's it. Another R2Kast finished. Another agricultural mind opened up. And I would just like to say that getting these guests on board, it does take time, and it always has done. But I've now went weekly, and with that comes even more time required. And I would just like to finally thank once more the Scottish Farmer for sponsoring the show and making that much more possible. Please be sure to get in touch if you've any ideas of people you'd like to see on the podcast, or maybe ideas you have for me presenting better, because I definitely do require that. See you in the next one.